Bubsy Bobcat!
What could possibly go wrong?
Hey everyone, Melting Man 234 here, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten Media, where I dig up some stuff you may or may not have heard of. Today we'll be looking at a video game character that is considered to be the worst video game mascot ever created, known as Bubsy the Bobcat. An anthropomorphic bobcat created by Michael Berlin, and was the mascot to a video game company called Accolade, or something like that. So let's get this over with and start off with Bubsy's first game called Bubsy and Claws Encounters of the Fur Kind, that was released for the Super NES and Sega Genesis on May of 1993. The story for the game is that a group of aliens called the Woolies have come to Bubsy's world to steal all the balls of yarn, and it's up to Bubsy to stop them. Most of the gameplay borrows, or most likely steals, ideas from Sonic the Hedgehog, such as they both run fast and they pass a sign that has their faces on it as they reach the end of the goal. The game has 5 main worlds with 3 levels each, and each of the levels' names have very bad puns consisting of cat puns. Bubsy starts off with 9 lives, collecting yarn balls, collecting t-shirts that give him certain abilities, and his abilities usually have him jumping on enemies, running extremely fast, and gliding, which makes no sense because Bubsy doesn't have wings, and he doesn't have a loose shirt, so I have no idea how a freaking bobcat is able to glide like that. The Bubsy games have been known for their level designs, as it's drawn out like a massive maze and you have no idea where you're going. Bubsy is voiced by Brian Silva, and the characters tends to get very annoying, as his catchphrase is, "What could possibly go wrong?" The game has been known for its cartoony art style and such, but overall, Bubsy's first game has been known for being somewhat decent or not that good, depending on who's reviewing it. A few years later, they later ported the game to Windows 95 and January 4th, 1996 under the name Super Bubsy. It was like the original, except it has redrawn graphics, new game elements, and has the Bubsy Cartoon as a bonus. Yep, that's right, Bubsy Bobcat had his own cartoon series that was planned to be in 1993. The pilot was made, simply titled, "What Could Possibly Go Wrong?" The story is about Bubsy's nephews coming over to Bubsy's house for their birthday, as they watch the news and find out some guy who creates a helmet that turns your imagination into reality. Yeah, a device like that kind of reminds me of the Sega VR. So, while this is going on, an evil cat lady plans on using the helmet to make her wishes come true and sends her henchmen Buzz and Sid to steal it. But it later turns out that Bubsy's nephews got it first, so it's up to Bubsy and his weak sidekick Arnold to get the helmet back. In this cartoon, Bubsy is voiced by Rob Paulsen, who has done a lot of voice work in his career, such as voicing Yakko Warner and Pinky in the Animaniacs series. And his voice as Bubsy is even more annoying than the other one. After the pilot was aired, it got massive amounts of negative reviews and low ratings, so ideas for a Bubsy cartoon series were cancelled immediately. The episode can still be viewed on YouTube, but let me tell you, it's pretty bland. Next up, Bubsy 2, that was released for the Super NES, Genesis, and Game Boy on April 3rd, 1994. The story for this game is that after Bubsy has saved the world from the Woolies, Bubsy takes his nephews to a historical theme park called the Amazatorium, created by a guy named Oinker P. Ham, who later turns out to be the villain, as the park's technology is stealing actual historical events. So it's up to Bubsy and Arnold to go through various levels based off of historical events, save the nephews, and defeat Oinker. Rob voices Bubsy again, while the game is the same as the original, except there are a few new things added in, such as Bubsy collecting trading cards to buy items, the yarn balls are now switched to spiral balls, and there are a few new weapons such as a diver suit, a Nerf gun, smart bombs, and a slingshot. Some of the characters from the pilot episode appear in the game, mostly Bubsy's nephews, Arnold, Buzz, and Sid. The game still contained its stupid puns, bonus levels, and that cartoony feel. The sequel wasn't that well received, at least that's what I've heard of it. But yeah, it's just pretty cheesy, especially with the villain, Oinker P. Ham. Like, yeah, sounds more cheesier than Crispy Bacon from Banjo-Tooie. Alright, moving on. Next up is Bubsy and Fractured Furry Tales, that was released for the Atari Jaguar on December 15th, 1994. It seems like this game is more of the forgotten Bubsy game, since when people talk about Bubsy, they barely mention this one. So anyways, you can tell Bubsy is thrown into a world of fairy tales, where he must save Mother Goose and restore order to the magical realms by defeating the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, the Giant from Jack and the Beanstalk, the Genie from Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, a giant lobster from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Hansel and Gretel from Hansel and Gretel. So it's pretty much the same compared to gameplay-wise. The yarn balls are now balls with the exclamation mark on it. There are level codes, not much power-ups, a bonus game based off of Snow White, and once again, Rob voices Bubsy one more time. This game is pretty weird, like the giant lobster in the 20,000 Leagues level. It's like, what's up with that? Isn't it supposed to be the giant squid that attacks the Nautilus in Captain Nemo? And I don't know why they had to pick Hansel and Gretel as the final boss. Whatever happened to the wish that tried to eat him anyway? Oh well, this game had some interesting music, but the rest of the game is just bleh. So since it's obviously only for a console that was a big disappointment, it's no surprise why this game is more of the forgotten Bubsy game. Alright, one more, and boys, this one's gonna be a real doozy. Bubsy 3D, or Bubsy in Forbidden Planet, that was released for the PlayStation on October 31st, 1996. It was also going to be featured on the Sega Saturn, but it was scrapped pretty quickly. The one thing that really puzzles me is that the game got a Gold X award, as some of the text says, Bubsy 3D climbs back on the top, and some stupid crap like that. How it got an award like that, I'll never know. Anyway, the story for the game is that the Woolies are back and have captured Bubsy and taking him back to their planet Rayon. But Bubsy escapes, lands on their planet anyway, and must defeat the two queens and collect rocket pieces to get back home. And since this has been said thousands of times, I'll say it again. Bubsy 3D has been known for being the worst PlayStation game. The game is known for its horrible puns, poor level design, and Bubsy's voice. This time he's voiced by Lena Minella, if I pronounce that right, and boy is it annoying as heck. The man behind this disaster is Michael Berlin. He felt that Bubsy 2 almost killed the franchise and wanted to make a 3D Bubsy game, even though he had no experience with the controls or any of the tools in making the 3D graphics and such. And speaking of the graphics, they are pretty terrible. Some of the levels look unfinished, while a lot of them look something like you'd see in a prototype or beta file. Now, I know this was during 1996 and getting new with the technology, but come on, they could have done at least better than this. As for its controls, it's like playing a badly programmed tank game. That's all I can say about the controls in a nutshell for this one. This time, instead of yarn balls, you get to collect atoms, or whatever they are, to earn points, and they also serve as an attack, as Bubsy can pick them up and throw them at something. There's also a good and a bad ending, depending on if you collect all the rocket pieces or not, but let me tell you, they both suck. The only good thing about this game is that there's an option to mute Bubsy's voice, and I'll bet anyone who's played this game has immediately muted Bubsy when they found out about the options menu. So, while the game was late in development, the team pretty much rushed it to get it done, and it turned out to be a horrible game. It pretty much shared the same fate as Sonic Next Gen, as that game was also rushed because the bloody fanbrats were being real impatient about it. So, once Bubsy 3D came, it pretty much killed Bubsy by dropping an atom bomb on him. And so, when the 2000s came along, Bubsy was chucked into the rejected world and was never seen again. Nowadays, some of the Bubsy games can be cheap, but sometimes they are expensive, depending on how rare or in good condition they are. Even though Bubsy was such a flop, there are some people that actually like the guy, mostly because they think he's cute and such. And I'll have to admit, if they gave Bubsy a massive attitude adjustment, he might have been a likable character. Oh well. In closing, Bubsy was a failure of a mascot, as his games contain bad puns, annoying voices, confusing levels, and there is no way they'll make another Bubsy game after the damage they've caused. If I was trapped in a room in which the only way to get out is to either play all 4 Bubsy games, or be forced to watch all 20 episodes of Out of Jimmy's Head, I'd go with Bubsy. Well, that wraps up this episode of Forgotten Media, so this is Melting Man 234 signing out.